The Indianapolis housing market is split up into countless other markets. If you buy in the wrong area today, you could lock yourself into either higher taxes, slower appreciation, or some serious difficulty in resale in the future. So that's why in this video, I'm gonna be ranking some of the suburbs that can actually have hidden higher costs and also some slower demand, which can really drag on that appreciation that you see over time. Also, some of the mid-tier suburbs where you have strong schools, you have growth, you've got a tight-knit community, and then also some of those top-tier areas that protect your equity even when the market cools. I'm Jason Compton, your Indianapolis Metro real estate strategist. I help buyers, families, and investors find the right areas and neighborhoods for the best value, their lifestyle, and their budget. All right, so let's go through that first tier, the 1-star. We're gonna go through some examples of some suburbs that I would categorize as that. What does the 1-star actually mean? So these are gonna be budget-friendly, less expensive suburbs, but they're gonna have some hidden trade-offs in there. So they're gonna have, of course, those lower entry point types of homes, but it's gonna come with slower appreciation. And then in some areas, they're gonna have crime perception issues, whether those issues are actually true or not, the perception is actually there. And then also you can run into some limited infrastructure investment. So maybe there's some infrastructure needs that aren't quite keeping up. So let's get into those. So I'm on the far, far east side of Marion County, far on the east side of Indianapolis. And I'm actually in a town that straddles Marion County and goes into Hancock County just to the east. So this town of Cumberland actually is sandwiched between Indianapolis and Greenfield, Indiana on the east side. Cumberland, you've got that east side budget access, which is nice, great entry point, but you're gonna have some really mixed pricing trends through Cumberland. So the median home price here in Cumberland right now, as of the middle of this year, July of 2025, you're looking at just over $282,000. And that's actually down 22.5% year over year. Looking at an average of about 33 days on the market, and all through this year, less than 20 homes sold in Cumberland. So as far as the real estate outlook in a place like this, it's still actually a fairly competitive market. You're looking at roughly 98.4% of the list price is attained whenever the home goes under contract. But the cons, you've got a pretty sharp year over year decline in prices and also really, really thin liquidity here. Plus, the inventory isn't terribly strong in most of what I would call a wider price range in Cumberland. Now, what you would want to watch for in a place like this is that it's extremely budget friendly, but if you're looking for that short-term flip or short-term equity play, it's probably not something that's going to pay off in the very, very short term. Here's another example of that first tier, that 1-star. It's Ingalls, Indiana, and it's pretty likely that most of you guys have never heard of this. It's in Madison County, in between Fortville and Pendleton. Now, Fortville has really come on, and Pendleton has begun to come on. So Ingalls being where it is, people are starting to kind of turn their eyes toward it. But when you're looking at a place like that, it's extremely small, so you get some really limited inventory, and that can cause just kind of a whiplash on prices. So what I mean by that is, as an example, right now the median home price in Ingalls is $132,500, and that's down 56.8% year over year. That is a dramatic drop. But when you look at the inventory, how many homes are actually sold in a place like that, it can really skew the numbers. There's less than 5. So when we're talking numbers like that, you can get one outlier that can really throw off the prices of a lot of the nearby properties. And the days on the market there, the average days on the market is less than 8 days. So it is very competitive for certain types of properties. Given its location, where it is, it's convenient with Fortville, Pendleton, and actually not too far from Noblesville. And that price point, it can just really wildly swing. So as far as an investment is concerned, the exit timing would be a concern here because of those comparables. It can really wildly throw off if you're wanting to be in there just for a really short amount of time, maybe a year, 2 years, 3 years, something like that, where those outliers are going to either drag your property down, there's always that risk, but it could also help to pull your property up. It's just hard to say which direction that it's going to go, especially when we look at year over year from this last year, 56.8% decline in prices. prices. That is not the overall picture or a great example of what's happening in most of the Indianapolis suburbs, all through Indianapolis and around. So a really good example of a place where you need to use caution if your resale or a quick resale is your objective. And I want to make clear though that anything that would make this list, it doesn't, just because it has a lower star, a lower tier rating, doesn't make it a bad place to live at all. It's just, what are your goals for the near future or the long-term future with regards to your house, your equity, what it is you're just really trying to get out of everything. You must keep that in mind. We're going to a place that is on that second tier, the 2-star. I would call these places that have really good value, but you're not looking for really quick appreciation year over year. And then also it's gonna fit a really niche type buyer. So out of 10 buyers, there might be 2 or so that would consider these places, but the value is still good. Appreciation can be there. It's just not going to be aggressive. So let's get into a couple of examples of a 2-tier. So I've just arrived, and this is Greenfield, Indiana. So it's just to the east of Cumberland. And I'm actually pretty close to downtown, right in front of the Wooden Bear Brewery. So if we look at Greenfield, the median home price right now in Greenfield is $285,000, and that's actually up 3.6% from this time last year, the middle of the year last year. And the days on the market, right now we're looking at about 23 days, and that is up from last year about 17 days or so. So when you look at stats like that, you'd think things are slowing a little bit. So as far as that outlook is concerned, when we're looking at the pros, we still have some solid appreciation, and we're looking at, of course, a really affordable price bracket too for a lot of people, a large pool of buyers. But of course, one of the cons, like I said, in this tier, you're looking at really a niche type of buyer that is gonna move here. Greenfield is still one of those places that's a little bit outside of Indianapolis, and so you really want or really need to be in a place like this. Although there's a misconception as to how far out it really is. It doesn't take all that long from where I'm standing, just over 30 minutes to get to downtown Indianapolis. That's not that bad. So then one of the cons, of course, is that if that perception remains, you have a smaller pool of buyers wanting to be in a niche place like this, then of course it could point to slower appreciation or a reduced volume of homes being sold. We could see a price stabilization or just a stagnant period. Now in a place like Greenfield, I don't think that's gonna happen because it's growing and there's a lot moving to Greenfield. But when that happens, that can introduce some instability or unpredictability at the very least as to what's going to happen with the prices over time. But there are a lot of new companies, a lot of new jobs, just a lot of people in general moving to this particular part of the Indianapolis metro, which is not terribly populated right now. Now staying in that second tier, that 2-star, we go clear on the other side, the west side of Indianapolis, into Hendricks County in a small place called Danville, Indiana. This place is on a lot of people's radar. In fact, this is a place that's a little more expensive. The median home price right now there is $350,500, and it's seen a really modest increase in price year over year. So the middle of this year compared to last year, we're looking at just under 1% in an increase in price, actually about 0.6%. And the average days on the market is pretty much the same, pretty close to it. So fairly stable and not doing a tremendous amount in Danville right now. So some of the pros over there in Danville, as far as the pricing concerned, it's really quite stable with a really favorable outlook over time. But it's gonna be one of those long-term plays for people who are moving into Danville. The con would be, you're not looking at a massive short-term equity gain at all. So if you were to move to Danville and expect, I'll move in 2 to 3 years and make out like a bandit here, probably not going to happen. That's also, again, in that 2-star, that second tier, that's a niche type of buyer that's going to want to or need to live in a place like Danville. That perception for Danville as far as being outside of Indianapolis is there, pretty far outside of Indianapolis, but it holds a little stronger for Danville. It really literally is further outside of Indianapolis and a little bit harder and gonna take a little bit longer to get to downtown Indianapolis or other locations in Indianapolis that you might need to be. All right, so let's get into the 3-star, that third tier. This is the place that's probably gonna be the best value sweet spot for all of them. You're gonna balance affordable places, it's gonna have amenities, you're gonna have consistent appreciation over time. And these are also gonna be places that above that 2-star, they're gonna appeal to more people. That's pretty good. That's getting deeper into that buyer pool. So right now I'm gonna travel up to our next place, our next city. I'm gonna get going and I'll see you there. All right, I've arrived on the west side, pretty close to that Danville location. We've got one that flies under the radar pretty continuously, and that's Plainfield on the southwest side of Indianapolis. You got a median home sale price of about $330,000, and that's 6.6% up year over year. So compared to the middle of last year, everybody that bought in the middle of last year is looking at roughly a little bit of appreciation. Also this year, average days on the market as we're looking at it right now, it's about 10 days. So homes aren't lasting. They aren't staying on the market very long, and that's actually about half as fast as what you're seeing last year. Or I should say, it's a 50% faster than what it was last year, 10 days and about 20 days in July of 2024. So as far as the outlook goes for Plainfield, you've got some really strong annual growth. And this isn't the only annual growth that it's seen at this percentage. It's actually happened for quite a few years here now at this point, and probably not gonna slow down in the next few years. If it's a place where you're looking to get some quick equity over a year or two, and you're still planning to be there a fairly long time, fantastic. But if you're looking for a year or two, maybe 3 years, and try to flip the place, then that 6% increase that we're talking about may not quite be the one that you're looking for. All right, let's look at another mid-tier 3-level, and that would be on the west side once again, but you get to the northwest, and that'd be Brownsburg, which has been immensely popular for a fairly large pool of buyers for quite a few years now. Median home sale price is about $333,052, and that is actually surprisingly down slightly from last year by about 0.21%. So a pretty modest plateau that we're seeing currently in Brownsburg. But the homes in Brownsburg, they don't last long. Average days on the market right now is about 23 days, which is up roughly 11 days or so when you compare it to the middle of last year. But the pros with Brownsburg is that it's still pretty competitive. You get a really nice home in Brownsburg that is in a pretty nice sweet spot for a large pool of buyers, then they tend to go fairly fast and under that average days on the market. But what we're seeing right now with Brownsburg, like I said, it may be a little bit of a price plateau. Average days on the market's climbing a little bit and prices are leveling out, maybe going backward just a touch, but they could be going forward in other parts of Brownsburg just a touch too. But overall, Brownsburg has been and will continue to be a really solid, family-friendly type of suburb from Indianapolis that is probably gonna prioritize a lot of stability, and that's kind of what we're seeing here right now. Not dramatic drops, not dramatic increases, but stability and getting away from that volatility. Now, if you haven't heard of some of these places or wondering where are these places or what are they like at all, we've got a 55-page relocation guide that we can give to you for free that you can peruse through and at least get familiar with all of the cities and towns around Indianapolis and all of the options that you might have, whether we mention them today in this video as a 1 all the way through a 5-star or 5-tier. You can decide for yourself which one's gonna be best for you by getting the information as to where these places are and what they're like first. You can just scan the QR code here on the screen to get your copy today. All right, on to that 4th level, the 4-star. These are the premium type of suburbs. So high demand, and you're gonna have a lot of resilience even in fairly volatile markets. Always gonna be, and has been for a very long time, really competitive to get into these because you've got a lot of what people want. You've got top schools, you've got a tight-knit community feel, and you just have that consistency in value that can stand just a whole lot of volatility in that market out there. So first example of a 4-star, not surprising, would be Fishers. Fishers, Indiana has been wildly popular for a really long time. Median home price is about just over $435,000 as of this year, but that's actually only up slightly, about 0.2% year over year. So when you say that's a modest increase, that's about as modest as you can possibly get in price. Average days on the market right now is about 12 days, and that's up from roughly 5 days or so last year. So that's still a really competitive market, and homes homes aren't staying on the market very long in Fishers at all. So as a homeowner there or selling there, it's still a super competitive market, and that's pretty positive for somebody or who owns property in Fishers, even though a lot of the market around Indianapolis and the country has kind of cooled off a little bit in the last couple of years. You still have that sustained buyer demand in Fishers. But one of the cons would be that short-term play once again. You've got a really modest increase in pricing, and actually over the last couple of years, the increase in price is there, but it's a little flatter than what it has been. So you're looking at more of a long-term play or long-term equity play in a place like Fishers versus that 2 to 3 year short-term window for somebody getting in and then getting out. But Fishers is still a phenomenal choice for families, a little bit like Brownsburg was, but it's larger, so you have more amenities, still top-rated schools, and that's what a lot of families are concerned about. You've got a much larger community in Fishers, and you're staying away from that volatility. You're looking at a lot of that long-term stability as far as your equity is concerned. Of course, that's always in a lot of people's mind and what they're concerned about. Next example of that 4-star. Again, way up on the northwest side, we have Zionsville, not surprisingly. Median home sale price in Zionsville is right around $747,500, and that's up about 26% year over year. So that is a really notable increase. Homes are selling in about 13 days or so compared to 11 days or so last year. So not really a statistically significant increase in the number of days on the market. So homes are still selling relatively fast in Zionsville. So a huge pro in Zionsville, you've got really strong demand and you have excellent retention in value in Zionsville and have for years. And we've seen this dramatic increase in prices over really the last 6 or 7 years, but especially after COVID. And then even in the markets that have been a little bit volatile and shifting over the last year or two, it's still one of the places that has obviously one of the most notable and statistically significant price increases that we see just about anywhere. One of the cons though, of course, for Zionsville is that cost. It makes it inaccessible for a lot of buyers and a fairly large pool of buyers that exist out there. If you're trying to get into Zionsville under $600,000, I think you'll find it pretty difficult to do and really fairly limited. The supply of homes, just the number of choices that you actually have in Zionsville with any price range, let's say there's no limit to it at all, it's likely going to be one of the smaller pools that you have to choose from out of any of the cities or towns that surround Indianapolis. So it does make it a little bit more difficult to get into. Okay, let's get into that 5th tier, the 5-star. This is what a lot of people would consider the best. Now, there's of course an opinion about that, but this is what we've found to be something that at least hits as far as the prestige appeal of these places. Also, the number of amenities, the number of choices, the number of options, the number of places that you have to go, it's much higher oftentimes in these places as well. And then also we've seen consistency in their performance in a lot of different market cycles across the past 10 and 20 years. And a lot could fall into this category, but these are the 5-star. So the first one is not the big surprise. It's Carmel. You're looking at a median home sale price in Carmel of about $447,500, which is a slight increase, about 2.3% year over year. Modest growth, but obviously still some growth there. And right now you're looking at about 13 days on the market or so, which is a little bit longer than what you had this time last year when you're talking roughly 11 days. But if you want to see how sometimes markets as large as Carmel's, they're not consistent all the way through. All you got to do is look down into, let's say, zip code 46032, which is going to be much more central Carmel. The median price there is about $567,000, and you get a big variety of types of homes. Single family homes, condos, things like that. Just a very, very big mix through there. And the prices there up 8.5%, actually 8.8%. So a bigger increase there in Central Carmel compared to the rest of the Carmel market as a whole. And also the days on the market in that particular part are a little bit lower. They just don't last as long. We're looking at 11 days on the market right now. So some of the pros to to living in Carmel, owning property in Carmel, you've got blue chip schools, super top rated schools there, not just in the entire area, but across the entire state. Very competitive as far as that goes. You've got the prestige of Carmel as well, which is something that helps to hold that value over a long period of time and volatile market cycles. But the cons would be, of course, the entry price to get into Carmel is still fairly high. And just as that example, all of Carmel is not exactly the same. You've got Central, you have East, and you have West, and they don't perform identically. And then inside of those, you have different markets as well. You've got the lower price tier of Carmel, you've got the middle, and you've got the upper in all of these different locations. And so you could be surprised sometimes at maybe how poorly a home seems to be performing. While all of Carmel is generally a very, very good bet, you just can't have the exact same expectations in every single location in Carmel. Next 5-tier, and absolutely has its eyes on being a 5-tier, is just to the north of Carmel with Westfield. So much new growth there, and really just have a tremendous amount of new construction and master plan communities through there. It has a lot of upside for a lot of people that are looking for kind of a fresh, newer feel to a community. It's fairly expensive now at this point to get into Westfield. The median home price just over $500,000, and the days on the market, we're talking under 2 weeks, about 13 days, and those prices are actually up about 8.8% year over year. So it is definitely on an upward trajectory and probably will be for quite some time. So it's one of those places that has an advantage of having long-term demand, but one of the cons would be people getting into Westfield, and let's say you got to turn around and leave within 3 or 4 years. It's still a place where you have a lot of new construction, and it's one of the places that you're going to compete with that new construction as a seller. When you compare to other places that are a lot more established and not growing nearly as much, like a Carmel, let's say, then you have less competition whenever you actually put your home on the market and people are out there looking and making those comparisons, because they always do. So competing against new construction a lot of times can be challenging. So your home might still be fairly new, 3 or 4 years old, but when you have a brand new home, nobody's ever lived in it, there's always going to be a pool of buyers that would rather have something like that. So if you haven't figured out where I am by now you probably should know. But I am in Noblesville for the last top tier suburb that I'm putting in here. And there are actually a lot of reasons more that I could actually fit into this video. Got a lot of videos about Noblesville and just what it contains, but it would be considered up there in that 5th tier. And one of the reasons for Noblesville is that the median home sale price right now is $375,000, and that's up about 4.4% year over year. Average days on the market right now, still about 12 days, pretty competitive. Homes don't last very long, and that's roughly the same as what we saw last year. Now you wonder what may be in Noblesville? How would you get to know a place like Noblesville? Well, in our exploration app, it's one of the places that you could dig into, and once you start seeing all the different places to visit inside of that app and go and pay them a visit and realize that, hey, there's actually a lot more to a place like Noblesville than I thought, I think you'd probably put it on your radar as well. But the mix of all of those things and the affordability of Noblesville just makes it a really incredible combination when you compare it to a lot of other places to live. So that's one of the pros for Noblesville, is that it is affordable to get into, has all of those things, but of course then one of the cons of Noblesville is that it does fly under the radar. It doesn't quite have the prestige that is associated with a place like Zionsville or Carmel. There's more than 80,000 people that live in Noblesville, so it's not this small town just out there on its own. It's very well connected to Westfield, to Fishers, to Carmel, and even to Indianapolis, even though the distance is a little further out. So when you're looking to combine all variables, Noblesville probably would fall into that best buy category, and that elevates it quite a bit. There are a lot of choices out there around the Indianapolis metro for suburbs, a lot of cities and towns. Now, if you make the right choice, then you set yourself up for, of course, stronger equity growth, a better lifestyle fit for you, faster turnover when it comes time to sell, if you feel like that's something that's going to happen in the near future for you. These are things that we talk with buyers every single day moving here, trying to match up all of the variables variables that are gonna be the best fit for them. So if you're ready to start your search, or you're still months away from starting your search but need to know where to start when the time comes, then reach out with the contact information below. Be happy to have a conversation with you about what might be the best fit for you. Or if you're even further out and you just want to keep on learning about a lot of the suburbs around Indianapolis, then watch this next video here and we'll catch you in the next one.